like, ooh, glowing praise. So, Mr. Ambassador, shall we welcome you first tonight? I could say ladies first tonight is Mandoo first. Hi, Mandoo.
Good night, Miss Campbell. Good night, Grenada. That's a lot of honor you're giving me there.
Well, you deserve it. We don't want to give you roses when you die.
Thank you.
Right. So, Mrs. Payne Banfield, it is great to have you back with us.
Thank you very much for having me. I would say good evening to all the viewers and listeners, and good evening to the panel.
Great.
My good friend Mandoo and my good friend Pamela.
Your very good friend Pamela, when we last left, the two of you started to get very warm. The temperature went up in Grenada. We had to pull it down. So we'll see how the gauge goes this evening. We're continuing that national conversation. Mrs. Pamela Steele, it is great to have you as always.
Well, Odette, is nice to be back here. I've taken a rest, from these kind of media programs. So I think I would say very lucky to have me back here a second time.
I feel blessed.
Let me say good night to all the viewers and the listeners. Thank you.
Great. And to all of our viewers and listeners, wherever you're joining us from this evening, from the diaspora, from at home, whichever part of the world, we're so happy to have you. So let's jump right in. We started a conversation, but before we continue that conversation, the topic of the day on the lips of all Grenadians almost is vaccines. So let me ask Mrs. Payne Banfield, you got your vaccine yet? Thinking you've scheduled an appointment to go get your vaccine?
I told you that I was not offered, invited, or requested to take a vaccine. I am waiting.
So if offered, invited, would you take the vaccine, Mrs. Payne Banfield?
It all depends on which vaccine. I would make sure that I'm taking one that is safe.
But how would you know it is safe?
Well, there are various reports of different ones, and I would prefer to take one that has been taken by other people, very important people, and tested and tried, and they're still alive. You understand what I'm saying?
Mrs. Payne,
and they won't try any nonsense with important people. So I want the one that the important people took.
Ms. Payne Banfield, so Prime Minister, the Right Honorable Dr. Keith Mitchell took the vaccine on Friday. Is that a good yardstick for you?
That is the one I want.
So it's AstraZeneca.
He's still alive with us, and I don't think he has any,
side effects?
Side effects, or I wouldn't know, but he's still with us. A lot of people were saying that they're not too sure of the side effects, and this is a strange virus. It's very strange. People have had the virus, and they got well, and they get it again. No, when I was a child, I had measles. I had the real bad measles. Itching all over, I was covered. And I got better, and I'm convinced that I am inoculated for life against measles. And that is usually how these things work. Once you get them and you get over, you don't get them anymore. But I have heard that people have had the virus, gotten over it, and get it again. Something is wrong.
Something is wrong. I'll come back to you on that. That's not where we were headed tonight, but the winds have driven us in that direction. Let me go to Mrs. Pamela Steele. Mrs. Steele, what is your position on the virus? Have you been offered any plans for you to get the vaccine?
Well, Odette, no, nobody have really approached me, but I will tell you. You see me? I find if you go to church every Sunday, the Lord tell us, my grace is sufficient for you. And I intend to take the vaccine. I have no problem. I intend to take whatever vaccine is being offered. And I will tell you what, I work in the Ministry of Health all through the AIDS epidemic. And I see how people did not take AIDS seriously. It was a big joke. If you lost weight, oh, she has AIDS. If they didn't see you for 2 weeks, oh, I wonder if she dead, she has AIDS. And a lot of people died from AIDS. I would challenge the statisticians in health to bring out the statistics dealing with how many people died from AIDS. But besides that, I will tell you, Odette, when I was about 14 years old on the Wharf Road, your road, it's still a little high up, but you know it. And there was a gentleman who we knew was crippled in a chair for a number of years, and people keep on saying, somebody do him. And we had a gentleman living right next door to me, they called Mr. Lover. Government engineer, not sick. He took him with a fever on Friday, and Sunday afternoon he was dead. His wife called out and said he couldn't breathe. And the place was in our pro, so they sent somebody from Trinidad up here to test and find out what was, and they took a sample. The epidemiologist in Trinidad looked through, and they know what they found out? He had polio. And they came up with a team from Trinidad, and they said there is never one case of polio. That means there are polio cases on the coronage. And all who are saying people do them and then wheelchair who half crippled and can't walk. There were 4 cases of polio. And the entire area, the coronage, right where we call Hobart Blaze Street, the entire area, all the Cooper Hills, all the Bills, all the valleys were inoculated. And that taught me a lesson. If the virus would help, and I know it to get one, I will be there first thing in the morning. So who listening could send a nurse and a doctor here home in Woolwich Road and bring the virus home.
You mean the vaccine, not the virus. You mean the vaccine?
The vaccination.
The vaccination.
The vaccination.
Whatever it is, they do, bring the vaccine from right here in Woolwich Road.
And you okay, we heard you. Mandoo, I see you smiling. You've heard these two ladies, and you beg to differ, or you agree, you concur?
I beg to differ, but good evening, Odette and everybody. At the moment, no. Eventually, yes, because of the nature of the business I'm involved in, dealing with tourist visitors arriving, we'll have no other choice. But right now, for tomorrow, I will hold fire still.
Sorry, Mandoo, I missed that a little. What did you say?
So I said at the moment now, no. Eventually, yes, because of the nature of what I'm involved in, the tourism and so, with foreign people, eventually have to. But at this moment right now, I say I hold on still, no.
Why are you holding out, Mandoo?
Well, to be honest with you, I'm not working at the moment. I'm home. I'm not dealing with people or whatever eventually. So, I mean, let's give it a while still. What's the hurry?
But we need to get herd immunity. We need as many people as possible to take the vaccine to facilitate that. And then you just never know. Things may just quiet down in the world, and you may not have the vaccine at your disposal again. So if you could get it now, why not take it now?
It's going to be there, don't worry. It's going to be available to everyone.
Okay. Eventually. So, Ms. Steele, I want to come back to you on something. You said His grace is sufficient. So what about people who say to you, God could take care of me, I don't need a vaccine?
I would say to them, they don't know the Bible. You know, God is not a page you open and you read and you put it away. God is in all of us and He takes care of us. But God have chosen to write and show people in the Bible the Psalms and the Proverbs. And some people are foolish. I would take the vaccine now. I would tell you something. People don't understand that if they don't take the vaccine, the time might reach when they can't travel. You might want to go later on to the US, Canada, UK, and they would say, you didn't take it at home, we don't want you here. Go back and take it. And that time you may not find any at all. Might be finished. But I still maintain that one have to have faith, and we have to remember what the Savior said. What he tell Paul when Paul complaining about that he has a problem, and we know it wasn't really a so, but Paul is saying that, and he said, "Stop complaining. My grace is sufficient for you." But remember, I'm an old woman now. I'm not your age, Odette. And I live with that. But I'm all set for the vaccine. All set.
Continue.
I will tell you something. For about 3 years, I used to bring the flu shot in my church. I would get a community health nurse. She would go and she would get about 20. I didn't know these things have to stay in a refrigerator. And she would bring it in the church. And the same people every year would take it, and there would be a set who would say they don't want the flu shot. You can't change people's minds.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you very much for indulging on this issue. It is one of national concern and sparking a lot of debate. So let's see if you've managed to convert some people. People like Mandoo still sitting on the fence and saying, we'll see what happens. And both ladies are saying, bring it come. I'm ready to take it. Let's move on and continue with the conversation, but we go on a different trail. We started looking at Grenada and independence and our national growth over the years from 1974, 47 years of independence. The question a lot of people are asking, are we independent? And I'm going to ask Mrs. Payne Banfield the question first. Do you consider us to be independent?
Well, I would say you have independence to, independence from, independence with. You have all kinds of independence. Independence has really opened the door for us to be interdependent because it opens the door to the world. It opens the door to the international institutions. And as a result, you cannot get away from some of the rules and regulations and conventions and protocols and all the things that happen in the world. Why it is that people look at things happening in countries, look at Myanmar now, people are looking at it and it's an independent country, but there could be some sanctions placed on it because of the army takeover. We had sanctions placed on us. Look at Cuba. Up to now, Cuba has sanctions against them. So independence is independence to do certain things. It's independence from getting certain things done to you. For example, in statehood, the defense of the country was placed in the hands of the mother country, quote unquote mother country. The business of establishing relations with other countries was also placed in the hands of the mother country. And I always say that we could never have had a revolution and got through with it if we didn't have independence. If we were still dependent, if we were still an associated state with Britain, 2 man-of-wars would have ended the waters and revolution would have done right away. So, that's my position. You're now interdependent. You're now taking your place on the world stage and being dependent on the other countries. There's no such independence of any state. Sovereignty, no. You might be sovereign and you may be able to make decisions about your state, but what happens if the whole rest of the world put sanctions on you and say no boat coming to you, no plane coming to you, nothing coming to you from the rest of the world? You have to depend on the rest of the world. thereby hangs the tail.
And by your example, Mrs. Payne Banfield, we've seen because of COVID-19, for instance, the Canadian government has restricted flights to and from the Caribbean and South America. So is that, COVID showing that to be real?
And that is a matter of health. And they are protecting their people. So they are independent. They have a right to do that.
And Grenada is interdependent. Okay, let's go on to Mandoo. Mandoo, so it is a question I'm certain you get asked a lot of the time as you do these tours around Grenada. What is our status? We're an independent nation. I'm sure you have to confirm that as a matter of history. But from your vantage point, are we independent?
First, we have to look back 47 years on where we was and where we are and where we want to be 47 years on from now. This is where we have to look at, focus. So in a lot of respect, yes, in other ways, yes, and probably some no. I could probably take a similar view to my friend Gloria. So this is, you have to look at the progress we made, the mistakes we made, and where we want to be 20, 30, 40 years down the road from now. That's how I look at it.
And so you have given me an inconclusive answer, Mandoo. I find you putting me on the witness stand. Are we independent? Right back at you.
Right back at me. In certain respects, yes, and certain respects, no. Put it that way. I know you're trying to pull a lot of things out of me here, but you're trying to pull a lot out of me here. I think we could have done a lot better than where we are now, 47 years on. Put it that way.
Okay, I'll take that for an answer, but I'll come back and do some digging in a little bit. And I'm crossing down to Woolwich Road, where Mrs. Pamela Steele is based. Mrs. Steele, your thought? Are we independent?
Oh, let me tell you, the day before we celebrated independence this year, 47 years. I had a gardener there, he comes in and tidy up the yard. And he said to me, why is this independence, Miss Steele? You think we're independent? And we have the queen face still on our currency. I said, let me tell you something, William. We're celebrating 47 years. Whether you like it or not, it's 47 years of freedom. You can get on a bus when you're in town and go where you want. If you don't steal from a shop, you could go in and buy from it. The currency we have with the queen face, the EC currency, you would rather have a 20 TT dollar right now in front of you or a 20 EC. You would rather have 100 Jamaican. And so I don't talk about Ghanaians. The last time I went to Ghana, you were looking at a refrigerator there for 54,000 so Ghanaians. 3 buckets full of money to buy a refrigerator. I said, let me tell you, I am a patriot. I have no problem with independence. We could do another 20%, but right now, the amount of things we have going for us as an independent nation, I say we spoil and Grenada, we extremely spoiled. Especially those of us who live poor. Now when you live on the car in Nigeria, I don't know about Gloria, because she been in Grenville. But down here, we live poor. Hurricane Janet had destroyed the Carnaval. It destroyed the pier. It collapsed everything. People woke up one morning and had nothing. You talk about Ivan, forget Ivan. We only lose roof. With Janet, 1955, we lost it all. I said, don't come here to me and take my EC money and go home with it and ask me why we have the queen face on it. Give me back. Take back my money. If you don't want the money with the EC, go and get a $200, go and get the EC. So I gave him a little lecture. And I said, the main thing I always say for independence we got was a Grenada passport. When I see how Nigeria was thrown out of the Commonwealth and they couldn't travel for how long. Respect your country, your flag, your Grenada passport, and your EC money. If we have others to get, we will get it. All the things Gloria mentioned, yes, we were there during the whole period. We worked day and night for independence. Endless committees. Mr. Gary never satisfied. He quarreling all the time. We going home 9 and 10 in the night. But we had to do it. My family never voted for Gary, but I'm working with the man. My grandmother said if the man asks for independence, no matter what they do and say, we're going to get it. 47 years, no. We come a very, very long way. We don't have much further to go. We have to build on what we have. Continue build on what we have. And continue build on what we have. That's my answer.
But Mr. Steele, on the issue of whose face is on the dollar, we have heard the passionate debate for several years. Since I was a young reporter, I heard people, every time there was a throne speech, calling for change in that direction and pledging allegiance to her heirs and successors. I'll never forget Sir Paul Schoon with a lot of those speeches. And we heard Mia Mottley, the Prime Minister of Barbados, saying recently that she plans to change that. Don't you think it's time that Grenada looking in that direction?
You know, wait a minute, Pam. Hold on, Pam. Let me say this. Have you ever worried or were concerned about the opportunity we got to get rid of Her Majesty and we didn't? Do you know we had an opportunity to and we didn't?
The revolution.
The revolution. The revolution came in 79, 5 years after. And they did not get rid of the Queen. In fact, they kept the Queen. And they kept the Queen in the form of Sir Paul Schoon. So much so that when, was it Brezhnev? I can't remember which Russian leader died. The head of state, which of course is the Queen, and in the personality of her Governor General, went to the funeral to represent Grenada. Because you see, in the world, internationally, if you send your head of state to something like that, people are satisfied that you sent the highest. So they kept the Queen. And there was a reason why they kept the Queen.
Well, you and I know the reason why
the Queen is the head of the Commonwealth. Not the British Commonwealth, mind you, the Commonwealth. And the Commonwealth is a significant institution in the world today. It is not only made up of countries who were formerly British colonies, you know. Countries who were not, they're trying to get into. And one interesting thing about the Commonwealth, they all speak one language and they all understand the same institutions. And so when you're talking about figuratively getting rid of the Queen, you're getting rid of cricket, you're getting rid of tea parties, especially the tea at church bazaars. And so that is English. You see, you're talking about heritage. Heritage is not only French, patois, and Creole.
What about cricket?
Cricket is in our heritage too, but we got it from the British. You understand? So there are a whole lot of things that goes with the Queen.
Can't you continue those things with a different
sphere? The thing about the Queen on the currency is very symbolic. As Pamela says, the value of our EC dollar is great. It has worth.
Odette.
Okay, so Ms. Steele wants to chime in here. Go ahead.
Barbados want to go to be a republic. That's what you were raising with me, Martin. The Barbados dollar is aligned to the US. You think that will happen? They would go and be a republic?
But even even if they become republic, Pam, they will still stay in the Commonwealth because there's value to the Commonwealth. There are many republics that are part of the Commonwealth. Guyana is a republic. They go to heads of government meetings. Trinidad is a republic. They had a heads of government meeting in Trinidad. So what we're talking about? You could say, okay, you don't want the Queen to be the head of your country, head of state, but that doesn't mean that you're not in the Commonwealth, of which the Queen is the head.
Okay, let me get Ms. Steele wanted to say something for quite a while.
If she intends to leave the Commonwealth.
She will leave the Commonwealth.
Ms. Steele, go ahead. You wanted to chime in on this for a while?
No, to go back there to what Odette was saying, basically, about every time the question of the dollar come up, and the Queen is on the dollar. And I don't think that people realize that the Queen, just as Gloria is saying, the Queen is there to strengthen the dollar, not the words, but what the dollar represents. And, I'll tell you something. 3 weeks ago, I met a gentleman by Cooperative Bank. He was putting on his mask to go into the bank. He told me he had spent a long time in New York. And he said since he came back, he found that one of the health hazards we have here is lack of education. So it's a great health hazard. And there are people who are prepared to open their mind to understand certain things as it relates to Grenada and what we have to offer. And I tell them, I say, well, you ain't talking, you preach, you write a book. And I don't know what is people's problem with the Queen face on our currency. Our currency is recognized and it has value. I have a friend right now who sold a house in Trinidad. And this is going on 5 years. Every time she has to get a part of what is due to her, she has to go down and wait. And after 1 month, they will give her permission to take 1,000 EC out of Trinidad. I said, well, you go dead and bury before you get your cost of the house. May as well, put that on your mind. So I'm just telling you that, I'm just answering that for this in raising the question of the currency. People need to travel to these islands where you're going with your EC and forget and change it. When you're coming back, they give you the currency. But let me tell you, if people have a mindset, you cannot change it. Some people have a mindset. And some people still have a mindset about independence after 47 years.
Okay.
I don't know, some people. I think we have moved in 47 years.
All right.
Whatever else has to be done is up to us to do it now. For the younger generation coming up.
We will take that as a point. Let's move on, and I hear recurring themes. So when we were last on, we had a train of thought from Mrs. Mason Francis that she said people spoke about revolution, and we were looking at education because we know she's been an educator, and the thought about if there was no education, revolution. Tonight we have heard if there was no revolution, there could be no independence. Mandoo, what was your thinking about the revolution? It was good for Grenada, it was
excellent for Grenada. What revolution? I think what the government achieved in 1.5 years, I mean, is who can really beat that? There's so much you could think about that they did, which today we still benefit from it as well, the legacy rate, the opportunities. So it's a pity that it had to end in that brutal way. But I mean, I think, yes, we gain a lot. We gain a lot from revolution, and we'll continue gaining a lot from revolution.
Mrs.
You heard me, Odette?
Yes, I heard you, and I want to come back. I want to come back on, but I want to just quick.
Kind of buffering a bit. I didn't hear much.
Okay, good. So I heard you. That's why I just want to do a quick run and ask Mrs. Payne Banfield whether she's taken by the point that had there been no revolution, there'd be no independence.
No, the other way around. If we didn't have independence, we could have not had a successful revolution. And although it aborted, it was successful.
So you're saying if the British were still in charge, we could have no revolution. Is that what you're saying?
If we didn't have independence, we could not have had a successful revolution.
Why?
The way in which it was. How you mean we were independent? Nobody could come and interfere with what was going on. There was nobody to come, no British man or what to come and let off a cannon out there. No.
Okay, so
and stop it in its tracks.
Ms. Steele, you could comment on this for 30 seconds before we come to a break.
And further to that, they kept the Queen.
Listen, it's just chuckling. She can't help us there. Much of a break, and we'll be right back. We'll hear what Ms. Steele has to say about this. This is Beyond the Headlines.
Every action we take impacts the lives of others around us. The Grenlec Community Partnership Initiative, GCPI, has been working with Grenadian organizations to impact communities directly. Giving back to communities we serve is fundamental to the way we do business. And every year, more lives are touched across Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. In education, sports, health, infrastructure, social services, and beyond.
Peace of mind comes from knowing that your family is safe and financially secure. For your peace of mind and theirs, plan ahead. Beacon's Rest Easy policy helps you to do just that. Rest Easy is a policy that offers you a payment upon your death or the death of any covered family member that can be used to offset post-mortem expenses. For as little as 75 cents per day, you can ensure that your expenses are covered. Call Beacon at 440-4447 and sign up for the Rest Easy plan today.
Total is one of the world's largest oil companies with a top quality line of lubricants. Total Lubricants has a full product line from passenger cars, motorcycle, heavy industrial equipment, mining, trucking, agriculture, and manufacturing machines and vehicles. Total Lubricants, winning championships in motorsports, including Formula One and World Rally Championships. Total Lubricants are available at all Rubis service stations, leading automotive shops, and distributed by Huggins.
Every action we take impacts the lives of others around us. The Grenlec Community Partnership Initiative, GCPI, has been working with Grenadian organizations to impact communities directly. Giving back to communities we serve is fundamental to the way we do business. And every year, more lives are touched across Grenada, Carriacou, and PT Martinique. In education, sports, health, infrastructure, social services, and beyond.
I'm reaching my dreams with GOT. They're the ones for me. I'm reaching my dreams with GOT. They're the ones for me. Since 1983, they've been serving the country, and we like all their financing, giving the people what they want, what they need, what they love. Come and join the family that's here for you all the way. From birth to graduation, your first job to your home, and your car through your golden years.
The GT Credit Union has been actively supporting nation building through its many sponsorships and the programs including Financial Literacy Quiz, Pass the Torch Calypso Program, Junior Cooperatives in Secondary Schools, CPEA, and the TAMCC Grants. The Credit Union has helped many people make their dreams come true. Let them help you with yours. You don't have to be a teacher to be a member. So what are you waiting for?
GUT Credit Union, it's where you belong.
How going on, boy? Hey, good old things. Hey, Daisy.
Yeah?
Boy, in line, boy, your house looking a real good day.
Boy, it's thanks to the hard-working and professional staff at the Housing Authority of Grenada. They handled me real nice. They did my plan, they did the construction, and I didn't even have to worry about a thing. They were there with me every step of the way, supervising the job, asking me about my concerns, giving me feedback as the house took shape. They were there from start to finish, and even put the keys in the palm of my hand. I give them an A++ for customer service.
Oh, it's people from housing bad, boy.
Boy, not bad. Excellent. If you're thinking about constructing your home, why not consult the Housing Authority of Grenada? You could visit them right down in the Sandino complex, or give them a call, 440-1015 or 440-1016, or check out their website, hag473.com. They go handle you. They go jog your blocks, they go draw your plan, they go tote your materials. Hey man, where you going? The Housing Authority of Grenada is your choice for affordable housing and a stress-free construction experience.
Do you know what time it is? You guessed right, it's detox time again. At Nirvana Natural Health Clinic, Detox Center and Natural Health Store. Purchase our 7-day cleansing pack for only $500. Includes everything you need for a complete total body cleanse. Cleanse your blood, kidney, liver, and colon. This cleanse will help you lighten up and get rid of the excess. Also available are our special product Detox Combo Pack for only $100. Try our single detox products starting from $40. Check us out now. Belmont St. George's, close to the Fall Edge area, or call us on 231-6642, 449-7753, or 418-7115. Nirvana Natural Health Clinic, Detox Center, and Natural Health Store. Detox, your way to health.
And welcome back to Beyond the Headlines. Just in case you joined us late, our panelists this evening, Mrs. Pamela Steele, Mrs. Gloria Payne Banfield, they're retired public officers, and Mr. Mandoo Seales, we call him Grenada's tourism ambassador. We're looking at a wide range of issues. We're calling it a national conversation. It's one we're continuing from 2 weeks ago. We opened the program by asking them their perspectives on the vaccine. We had, let's see, it looks like 75% if we did a survey of our respondents saying, bring it on. And the other 25% saying, I'll hold on. And we had the scriptural version of it. We had this social issue side looking at it. And we've moved on looking at Grenada. Are we really independent? Should the Queen be still our head of state? Should the Queen's face be on the EC dollar? Very interesting perspectives. In case you join us late, those are some of the issues that we've tossed. We also look at the issue of the revolution and its value in Grenadian life. Was it really worth our while and worth the trip? And there seems to be agreement that it was worth it. Mandoo, I want to come back to you because you said you something got lost in translation. So let's come back to Mandoo on the whole issue of the revolution and whether it did Grenada any good. Mandoo?
Yes. Tremendous gains came from the revolution. There's no perhaps about it. I mean, we all know that you could sit down and go on and on and on and on of the gains from revolution. Obvious, in every system, you have your bad points and your good points. Yes, they were bad, but at the end of the day, I think the good way outweigh the bad in the revolution.
And just a reminder of viewers who did not get the first half of the program, 2 weeks ago, we had Mrs. Judy, who we were hoping to have with us again tonight, and Mrs. Mason Francis. Unfortunately, both are unavailable. We know that Ms. Williams would really have liked to join, but she had a health check today, and she did explain her situation. It was really nice to at least have her because she's backed away from doing these public engagements. So Mrs. Mason Francis and Ms. Williams, we salute you again this evening, and it's unfortunate that you could not rejoin us this evening. So let's continue the conversation. Mrs. Steele, when your very good friend Gloria, like you like to call her, was making her point just now, you were just chuckling. And what is the point you want Grenada to get, probably in contrast to what she was saying?
Well, Odette, as you know, with the revolution, I work with both Bernard and Morris. No, this is a topic I have avoided for years. I don't go and speak about the revolution. You know, people get very hyper and they feel they could tell you anything. I work first from the morning of March 13th with Morris. I made it abundantly clear to him I didn't know anything about him. I said, I grew up with Bernard Code. I knew Bernard, I knew Floyd, I knew Ina. I didn't know Morris. And I would go between Morris this month, Bernard next. Bernard would always call me back. But I listened here to Mr. Seales, and yes, there were gains from a lot of different projects the revolution put on. But a different slant from Gloria. The revolution met certain things that Gary had started. We call him EMG during the years he was there, 74, 5 years to 79. Let's take, for instance, the NIS. People think that the PRG started the NIS. The PRG didn't start the NIS. Gary put it in hoping for it to be a social program. And what happened is he couldn't get it off the ground. And I remember I went and I asked somebody why he couldn't get it off the ground, because he's popular, he has all these people with him. And they told me the problem was that it was a Labour government. And here you have a Labour leader who just get, as we would say, 2 pence for his workers. Put it in the right hand and you want in the left hand to take one from them and put in a social program, which they knew nothing about. These people are not highly educated. And so it remained there for 2-3 years until the PRG came in and put the law to make it effective. And I still think that one of the biggest assets of the GULP for the time they were there was the NIS. Though they did a lot of the programs in INSTEP, they did the CPE, they got people up together, they got people to get up and clean up the area. And what I would say is they got people with national pride. People would say, okay, you have to clean this drain, and you will have public officers, especially where we work in Butler House, you'll have the PRA, you'll have a lot of these young people. They would come out in the morning, clean the place, cut the grass, clean the drain. People took pride. And every time you had International Women's Day and these kind of things, people would come out. The problem, as I saw it, with the PRG is the education didn't go far enough. You had Bernard in Mount Weldale, and you went down 5 steps to get to Bernard in what we call Rapier House. And I mean, the whole collapse of this thing just traumatized people. Here you meeting these 2 people, living next door to each other, sharing the PRA, who was their security, not knowing what's going on in the bottom. And I would tell you that people were just upset. I was upset with 2 of them. It took me about 10 years before I decided to go in the jail and meet Bernard face to face and ask him what took place. And after that, I went back and forth. Some of the young boys, I knew they were one I was related to. But I would tell you a strange thing with me, Odette. After the revolution collapsed, I finally got to understand what Gary was doing. And I realized they were doing the same thing. There were people who they were dealing with, there were persons who were dealing with people and trying to do the best for the people in the country. One was uneducated, and he had people with him who was making him account to George, who was his Minister of Finance. As George would say, Chief, these people making you do a lot of wrong things. And then you had Morris and them, the educated, the elite, the people who been in universities, who had high, lofty ideas, and 2 extremes, but for the same purpose, to take care of the people. And a lot of things that Morris dealt with was started during Gary time. Gary went one time, he brought in, as Gloria said, we ended up under these United Nations program, UNICEF. And he brought a meal. There was so much overweight children in Grenada. And UNICEF said, this thing is going through the Caribbean. And they brought this non-fat milk. And people won't drink the milk. Oh, Gary, bring this milk to kill people. Well, we on the Caribbean juice to boil the milk and drink the milk. And the PRG came and brought the same milk in. And people say, oh, they bring Revo milk, it's going to kill you. Today we pay $8 a pound for non-fat milk in Grenada. And we have a lot of overweight children in schools. You just have to stand up and watch them. So these were men who were trying to do the same thing to get the same end result in different ways. A whole set of educated people and a whole set of uneducated people.
So, Ms. Steele, let me try to understand something. Let me try to understand this. You said, is that you were saying one person was educated and one person was not? And is it that you're talking about political leaders here? Or you're talking about groups?
Oh, yes. Gary always said he had no education, just primary school. But you had Morris, who was a British-trained lawyer. And all the people with him were a lot of educated people. All his ministers, all the people in the party. Gary had a lot of people who were fanatical. Look, if you read part of the Constitution report when they went up for independence, one of the main arguments the British government had with the people who were there around the table, I learned that from people who went back. Because let me tell you, when they went for independence, Gary didn't go up alone. Mr. Blaze had to go with his side of people. You can't get independence with only, a premier. You have to bring your opposition. And the argument was the Grenadians are not ready to deal with independence because the level of education was weak. But Gary was a man, if he say you want independence, he don't care what you tell them, they come up for it. And that, I tell you, it's afterwards I put the parallels as the years passed and realized that there were two different men trying to do the best for the country. One educated, one uneducated, but the goal was to take care of the needs of the people. Gary built a lot of schools, but then people won't go into school. He built a lot of schools. What happened? Thursday and Friday, the agriculture people have their children selling produce in town. Then going in, Blaze built a lot of roads. The PRG was able to put min-step CP and get people into schools. I remember one time in Butler House where we were working, and he said he got the shock of his life. In going around, he found there were students in classes, primary and secondary, more educated than the teachers, more brilliant than the teachers.
Okay. So
could explain themselves better than the teachers.
Mrs. Payne Banfield, let me ask Ms. Payne Banfield a question, right? I'm hearing, that so Eric Gary, he went to primary school, but one of the things I was always impressed by, the way he spoke, and people would hear me say that my father would tell you, child, I ask you a genuine question. There are some words that, the late Nicole Bess's father, Mr. Selwyn Humphrey, when you heard people like Selwyn Humphrey and my father only went to primary school, but when you heard them speak, and I think some of them probably were mimicking. So, Eric, do you really agree with the notion that he was not educated?
Well, it depends on what you mean by education and how educated a person is. The records are there. Mr. Gary did not go to a secondary school. He did not go to the GBSS or the PBC. Those were the reigning schools in his day. But then there were many people who did not go to secondary schools but did very well. For example, there were headmasters. I know of at least one who didn't go to a secondary school. He came up through the ranks. They used to have pupil teachers, and they take their pupil teacher examination. And when they show promise, they would send them on and then appoint them as teachers and send them to be trained and so on. And they rose. Those primary school, those graduates of primary schools in those days were very, very well educated. So the institutions were not available. And then they all boiled down to class. That word class that we talked about earlier on in our discussion. Some people had the color and they had the wealth and they had the opportunity to go to certain schools secondary schools because their father was Mr. So-and-so. They came from a high, what they call a upper class. They had nothing in their heads. They came out just as uneducated as the people who didn't go to the schools. Right, Pam?
I only said his lack of formal education. It didn't keep him back. You know,
No, he was
just had parallel with Morris and them coming in and Bernard and all of them from the UK. And they grabbed a certain amount of people. And he had a certain group of people. That didn't prevent him from speaking properly and dressing classically. But you have to admit that. Hold on, Gloria, what he did, he took 5 men from the GBSS, who we used to call the farm masters, and made all of them permanent secretaries.
Okay.
You remember?
Okay, so before the two ladies engage in a forever crosstalk, let me go to Mandoo. So Mandoo, I don't know if you have any perspectives on that, but I want to ask you, let me see if you have a perspective on that. I have a question I want to ask, but I see you smiling. You have a perspective here.
The two ladies, well, they're drunk on me. That's the problem. they're drunk on me. Keep up with them. No. See, in every... there are people with different talent, put it that way. You don't have to be a big educated scholar to be a professional person or to be a successful person. Steve Jobs of Apple Computer, he's just a great programmer, and look how well he did before he died. So here we are as different people in different fields. And so it's difficult to judge it that way, because a lot of people who go to university and have big degrees, that didn't say they're all that bright, eh? You know,
I got that.
Say all that bright that is somebody who hasn't been to university. I just spoke about Sir Eric. You know, he was a brilliant man in his field without the university background.
Very good. So this is Beyond the Headlines. When we come back, we want to entertain questions. The social media feed is abuzz and alight with contributions. We'd like to entertain some of those. But one of the things, just before we cross to the break, there's a photograph I want us to look at when we come back, and I'll ask Ms. Steele and so a question about it. I don't know if the producer has it lined up that we could just take a quick peek before we cross to the commercial break. Right. I would want anybody who knows who that person is or what this represents to chime in on the conversation. This is Beyond the Headlines. We will take a look at that photograph and have some discussions regarding that. And we'd also entertain your questions, your calls, 440-1252, just in case you want to call in. We'll be right back.
A great man once fed a multitude with 5 loaves and 2 fish. Imagine what you can do today with a Lotto jackpot. Be in it to win it with the National Lotteries Authority's Lotto jackpot of $74,000. Lotto. Play and win a lot of money.
A pleasant evening to everyone. Welcome to the National Lotteries Authority's Lotto Draw number 3176 for today, Monday, February 15th, 2021. I am Anisha Charles. With me this evening is Ms. Makiba Bain from PKF Accountants and Business Advisors, whose purpose is to ensure that this show is conducted in an accountable manner, and the game balls with industry standards and in a way tampered with. At this time, you should tickets at hand because we are about to play for a jackpot of $74,000. But first, your free ticket letter. Good luck. This evening's free ticket letter is check your tickets. Your free ticket letter for this evening is a G as in gold. Let's proceed for 5 winning numbers. Good luck. First number this evening is check your tickets. First number up is 32. Second number up. Second number is 4. Third number up. Third number is 21, followed by 25th and pan number is 6. The Let's recap those numbers. Check your tickets. First number up is 32. The second, 4. Third, 21. Followed by 20. Fifth and final is 6. So that's 32, 32, 044, 21, 21, 20, 20, and 066. Your free ticket letter for this evening is G as in gold. Congratulations to all the winners of this evening's Lotto draw. Lotto, play and win a lot. When you play all the games of the National Lotteries Authority, support sports, culture, and the nation building. Thanks for joining us. Have a wonderful evening.
By now, you should know that the early bird catches the worm. So, what are you waiting for? Put wings to your feet and head to your nearest scratch seller. For every Quick 7's scratch ticket you buy at $2, the NLA gives you 7 chances at winning as much as $7,000. Scratch the entire play area for your 7 chances at revealing as much 7s and win the corresponding prizes. Win easy with Scratch. Must be 18 or older to play.
Get Rubigas. Get cooking. Rubigas, clean, safe, and reliable LPG is the perfect solution for your commercial and everyday needs. For cooking at home or barbecuing, choose Rubigas LPG cylinders. Available in a variety of sizes from 20 to 100 pound cylinders. Rubigas LPG, clean, safe, reliable. Are you cooking with Rubigas?
Get Rubis, get going.
What makes a strong team? Supporting each other, sharing successes and disappointments, learning from one another. Get a Be Better health plan from Beacon and get simple and affordable medical benefits so you can build a better team. Call 440-4447 or log on to beacon.co.tt for more information.
Welcome back. This is Beyond the Headlines. We've been speaking with Mrs. Pamela Steele, Mrs. Gloria Payne Banfield. They're both former public servants. And Mr. Mandoo Seales, he's our tourism ambassador. And we've been discussing a wide range of issues. Very interesting discussion thus far. And we were on the issue of education and how our prime ministers were seen and the school of thought that we had a prime minister who was considered not highly educated, as opposed to the revolutionary leaders who were British-trained attorneys and had the levels of expertise. And one person sent a question on social media. So tell me, which secondary school did Prime Minister Tillman Thomas attend? Is this a question? And I guess the person is trying to make a point. And before we went to the break, there was a photograph that we teased, and I'd like the producer to assist us with putting that photograph up for us. There we have it. And I decided to take a look at that photograph. Within the view that we had our panelists speaking about the fact that in the days of the revolution, we had national pride, the young people were involved. And let me ask Mrs. Payne Banfield if at all she has any idea who that person is, probably which school the person was attending, and the fact that the person is in school uniform and has that weapon slung around the shoulders. What is that saying, said? Mrs. Payne Banfield, I'm coming to you first. Think you could identify who that person was?
I think I couldn't identify the person.
And who might that be?
That's the question you asked me, and remember you asked me that. I think I could identify the person. I think I could identify the school she went to. But what that picture says to me is that a lot of young people were involved in possibly what you call a military takeover of Grenada. Some people call it a coup d'etat, and other people call it a revolution. The guns suggest it was a military coup d'etat. So, what else do you want from me, Odette? Who the person was, I think I could identify them. But you see, you have libel laws and slander laws and all kind of things. And some people have grown up in this country knowing that you have to be careful. You have to guard your tongue in identifying people.
If we could go so far, probably as to say the person is one of a twin?
I don't know what I don't know anything about their siblings, but I do know that this person has done very well intellectually and has occupied high positions in institutions of learning.
And has a PhD.
Case closed.
Has a PhD and is living in a very important metropolis in the United States of America. That's as far as we'll go.
Well, that is the ironic thing about it, you know, because it was. You remember the imperialists. The imperialists were Americans, and the war was against imperialism. Forward against imperialism, but all the people who emerged from the fray ended up in America, the great United States of America.
Mrs. Payne Banfield, that's why we love you so. You put these spins on things, and not spin as an American spin in a negative way, but you help enlighten us on issues that we gloss over. Thank you so much for saying that. Mandoo, let's just say you had a student and you send that student to school, and then you see this photograph with this student in uniform and that high level grade weapon slung around your daughter's shoulders. What does that say to you?
That was then at the time. How do you judge that? And the system was at the time. It's hard to really tell. Because wasn't that just that individual we are seeing? There was many, many like that young lady at the time. So it's difficult to judge. You know, see, Odette, I more or less read every book that was written about the revolution, especially local people who wrote local books, and everybody gave you a different perspective of the revolution. So it's you be your own judge, you see? And now I have the time to sit down and read all these books, you know, everybody. So it's difficult. And you can't start pointing fingers, you know, of who was right or who was wrong. As I said before, at the end of the day, the revolution we benefit tremendously from the revolution. There's no perhaps about it, you know.
Okay, great. Ms. Steele, I see you inching forward. It looks as though you want to say something here. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I know who the young lady is in the picture. I have to agree with what Mandoo is saying there, that we tend sometimes to take the context away from the history and the time. At that time, there were a lot of people within various sectors of the revolution, and a lot of people were going to military training, and quite a number of young people were involved. She's not the one with the twins. Her sister is the one with the twins. And that picture is on a lot of books that were printed during the revolution. Her name is in the book. I don't know what Gloria is saying about, you know, if you say who it is that you're telling, somebody might come and, you know, drop a lawsuit on you. She's on that front page. She's within the book. There are a lot of books that came out, and I agree there with Mr. Seales. It was the time of the day. I, as I said at the beginning, I don't really speak about the revolution because you never know who you're speaking to, and people tend who not there to write about it, who didn't know about it. I work with both men. I work with the revolution. My children are fully involved in the revolution. And, you know, as I said, the two men were living close apart. I work in finance with Bernard and in Butler House prime ministers. But I would tell you something. Grenadians are a funny group of people. We would sit in the Butler House, as they call the old Santa Maria Hotel. And you will have people coming to Morris that you don't expect to see, to make an appointment, to beg for something or the other. And when they come out, I would ask them, myself and a young lady with me, working with me, and I would have, as a matter of fact, all the people in Butler House were people that were working with Gary in the Prime Minister's ministry. Morris kept everybody. And I would say to him, You got an appointment? And they would say yes. And I would say, what time? And they say, tomorrow, 10 o'clock. And I would say, 10 in the morning or 10 in the night. Because a lot of appointments, the way these men were walking were in the night. And we used to be amazed at the kind of people that would come to Morris with that revolution. The revolution had its good and its bad. I would tell you one thing I learned. National pride and integration of Caribbean. And you know how we learned that? There were an international netball tournament here in Grenada in 1982, right at Tantine netball playing field. And we had New Zealand, we had Australia, we had the big islands, Jamaica and so, and we had a few from, Grenada was taking part, St. Lucia and St. Vincent. And we went down to netball about 3 o'clock. And we were there. I remember Peter David mother, Marcella was there. She was the cabinet secretary. And Monica Phillip. A lot of us who played netball and knew about netball, we went there. And Grenada won a few matches and we were coming along. And then Trinidad beat us. And we took that, we took that as if it was an affront that Trinidad could come up in Grenada. Mind you, Trinidad was stronger than us. But when Trinidad beat us, we were upset, terribly upset, the set of us watching netball. And so when New Zealand came to play Trinidad and they were coming up towards the final, every goal Trinidad made, we booed Trinidad, and every goal New Zealand made, we clap. And we thought we were doing a good thing, eh? We thought. And the next morning when we went to work, Mrs. David came and said, Pam, the comrade leader want to see, and she called out names. And we were wondering, well, what do you want to see us for? It's not 9 o'clock yet. So I gather Patsy, I gather, what's your name, Philip Girl, a whole range of us who played netball and knew about netball. And so we went in there, team, and we wonder where we're going, what it is. And when he got there, he said to us, what happened to y'all yesterday on the playing field? And we said, well, the netball match. And he said, how could y'all do that? All the goods we have in Grenada come from Trinidad. All the factories, there are 80-something thousand Grenadans living and working in Trinidad that are registered. There are a lot that are not registered. We are struggling with Caribbean integration. And you all boo Trinidad and applaud New Zealand. And that man was upset. We didn't know he came to netball. Mrs. David was a netballer, and she was there. And he taught us, don't ever do that again. If you didn't want to back Trinidad, just keep quiet. He was so upset, he took the morning off, And we didn't know what to say, but he taught us something. To go and boo Trinidad and applaud New Zealand for beating them. They came second.
And I'm certain that story would stay with me. And we've spoken a lot about Caribbean integration, but that is a deep lesson that I would take away from tonight's program. We have someone who has been on the line for the last 15 minutes and said they want to be chained to the telephone line. You have been patient. Good night and thanks for your patience.
Good night, Odette. I really want to commend these two ladies. They are geniuses. They say the things that they have to say without any bias. I have relearned many of the things as I've listened to these two ladies. They give the facts. And to me, this is what, to some extent, education means. You educate the people, and maybe they accept, if they could accept it, and they reject what they feel to reject. And as far as, if I should end by saying, education is fit to live and fit to live with. What do I mean by that? You should be able to make a living and you should be able to accept and reject things and make people happy, even if you yourself are not happy. So fit to live with and fit to live with. In fact, as far as I'm concerned, if we were to compare these two ladies to maybe the youthful ladies, they are far above the so-called educated ones with the 40 and 50 CXC. I don't think Miss Gloria Payne have 40 CXC.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Neither the other lady.
Coming into the program 2 weeks ago, we did recognize the fact that they are stalwarts among us. They stand head and shoulders above many, and it was the reason we did the little award on the Sunday that we did send them flowers when they could acknowledge it. And we have Mandoo there sitting tonight, adding some fervor to the discussion. So Mandoo, the whole issue of Caribbean integration, you think that 47 years later we got it? We get it?
I don't think so. Matter of fact, I think we start going backward instead of going forward. And the Eric Williams and things like that. So, but I can't see the Caribbean integration to me is literally falling to pieces, because I think each and every government think about themselves and not the region.
Okay, so we're not there yet. Ms. Payne Banfield, I saw you nodding just now as if you're not nodding in the affirmative, were you?
About the...
whether we get it in terms of Caribbean integration.
Oh, boy, that is going through a rough period, especially with this COVID business. However, I did want to say something, and let me say it now. There were many gains that the revolution made. One of them being the improvement to the NIS that Pam talked about. The fact that it was all done before and they implemented it. They added a clause about maternity leave. And I think the women of Grenada have benefited from this clause in the NIS laws. However, one of the losses, as far as I am concerned, is the Pension Disqualification Act that they passed. The people's, my dogs are very agitated. I don't know why. Because you have somebody there that is not welcome. And they passed the Pension Disqualification Act, and which was a negative step. And I think the rationale was that if you join the NIS, you wouldn't need pensions, which was another fallacy. But the NIS needed critical mass. The people whom the NIS was designed for were the non-salaried people, the people who were itinerant workers, who were not sure of anything and they left when they got to a certain age. And so that was made. That was the arrangements and the NIS throughout the Caribbean from that period, all through the Caribbean. And if you worked in any of the Caribbean countries, you would get your NIS where you worked. So you could collect NIS from 3 countries, for what I knew.
Okay. And those kinds of perspectives, Mrs. Payne Banfield, help us to understand some of the underlying issues, because we see them spewing out into the public domain these days in the form of protests. And we had the teachers issue, which is ongoing, the public workers issue, which is also ongoing, and protest is continuing. But I'm certain we could have a program dealing with that subject all by itself. We have a call on the line.
I would like to do that kind of discussion, because you see, pensions are guided by the Constitution of Grenada.
Yeah.
There's a whole chapter on pensions in the Constitution.
Definitely, we'll delve deeply into that.
When the Constitution was restored, there should not have been this debate about it. That is legal matter.
We have a call on the line. Caller, good evening.
Yes, good evening. Greetings. Very interesting conversation there. And I salute the two stalwarts there, Mr. Steele and Mrs. Payne Banfield. I want to refer a bit on the independence issue. You see, there are two stark realities that Grenada supposedly became a politically independent and sovereign nation state. No one can doubt that over the years we've been to the United Nations, we've been here and there, we run our own affairs. But can these two ladies, who indeed have also been, quote unquote, the thick and thin of all the administrations for the past 2 generations, can they, any one of them, tell me where we can find the Constitution Act and the Independence Act? In other words, the documentation that gives faith to Grenada's status as a sovereign and independent nation state? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Ms. Steele, you want to take that one first?
I'll take that one first.
Okay, go ahead. Sure.
When we became a colony of the United Kingdom, somewhere in 1783, first of all, we won the war. Well, when I say we, the British won the war in 1763, and the French came back in 1779. But in 1783, there was a final severing of ties with France. And the British came in and they introduced a constitution by which they would run Grenada. And over the years, there have been several constitutions. In 1951, we had a new constitution whereby adult suffrage was entertained and given and granted. And between that, we had different constitutions. In 1967, we had the statehood constitution. And my question or my answer is that nobody asks us anything about those different constitutions. Nobody consulted with the people of Grenada. We were not accustomed to that. It was not part of the tradition. And therefore, I'm not surprised that there was no so-called consultation. But I suspect what happened is that the British brought down the two sides, the opposition and the proposition, the government and the opposition, and they hammered out a constitution, which they passed in an act of parliament in Britain, which they were accustomed to doing all along. It was historically so and traditionally so. It gave us, though, the right in that constitution to determine what we wanted in the constitution, because it is a clause about referendum and amendments and what and how it should be done and all of that. So my feeling is that this was the opening for us to patriate the constitution.
Okay.
What should have followed afterwards was an involvement of the Grenadian people in changing the constitution to suit themselves. We had an opportunity to do that when we had a referendum some years ago. But you see, by that time, the horse was out of the stable, and people were suspicious.
Okay.
And as I suspect, since traditionally, they're not accustomed to doing that, it failed.
Right. Let me just ask, in the interest of time, if we could just take a pin here and try to entertain one last caller, because we only have 5 minutes remaining. Caller, good evening. It's great to have you, and you'd have to be brief.
Good night to you, Miss Best, and to all the other persons there. And I must congratulate every one of them. I thought that they made a very good contribution. Mr. Mandoo, who I know very well, and the two ladies. I must say that I agree that the revolution had its good, did some things good, and had its bad. I must admit that independence did us good, and it had its bad. We had a lot of places, a lot of things that we have not achieved yet that we should achieve for the 47 years that we're independent. But Grenada have come a long way. There is a long way to go. But I want to see anybody that's thinking that
Eric Matthew Gary was not educated, not qualified as an educator because he did not go to a secondary school is total nonsense. Mr. Gary could have matched any other Caribbean prime minister in the Caribbean. There was no prime minister in the Caribbean that could have fool Mr. Gary. He was educated. He didn't go to a secondary school, but no prime minister in the Caribbean, the Eric Williams, the Bustamante, all of them, they could not have turned down that gentleman. He had his bad times. He did some wrong things, but there was no prime minister in the Caribbean that could have turned down Gary.
Got you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for that contribution. Ladies and gentlemen, we're at 4 minutes to 10 o'clock, so we need to wrap it up. I'm going to give Ms. Steele the first bite of the cherry to give closing remarks this evening. Ms. Steele, what would you like to say finally to our viewers and listeners?
Well, I think the last caller did say quite a lot, and it is true. Because, when Gary came back and he was the prime minister, the first thing he said was that in the Caribbean now, they have 2 prime ministers named Eric, a big one and a small one. And Trinidadians were trying to figure out who's the big one, who's the small one. Because Gary was a tall man, always well-dressed, always, good looking. And Eric Williams was a very short man. And Eric Williams, was a brain. And so he would say this over and over. There are 2 prime ministers in the Caribbean, a big Eric and a small Eric. So in a way, all the leaders from time to time made their contributions to this country. And some would have had their shortcomings. Nobody's perfect. Jesus Christ is the only perfect person we know. And he did a lot. I worked with him. I worked with the PRG. Well, I worked with all those prime ministers to begin with.
Ms. Steele, you have 15 seconds. The bell is ringing. You have 15 seconds, Ms. Steele. The bell is ringing.
Yeah, we have to appreciate. And as I said, we still have about 20% to go after independence to get to where we want.
All right. Thank you so much. Ms. Payne Banfield, you have 15 seconds to give us a little closing comment.
Thank you for having me again. I think we have uncovered a number of issues which you could follow up in due course.
Good.
Whenever you want to, I'm available.
Sure. Mandoo Seales, our tourism ambassador, your closing thoughts.
My concern is what is we like the younger generation now for the next 47 years on. Are we paving the way? I'm not seeing at the moment, my concern.
Okay. Thank you so much. And let me just say, by popular demand, we have calls for a continuation of this conversation. An interesting point by someone, Bonman said, the revel was and will always be illegal. We have somebody saying these ladies are really brilliant and we need to continue. And we have another contributor telling us that can Mrs. Payne Banfield and the others continue, especially on the Constitution matter? Very interesting and very educational. We have a lot of similar comments being made on our social media feed. So let me salute our panelists this evening. Thank you sincerely for coming and ventilating those issues. We've uncovered a lot and I've learned a lot. I want to thank you, and I'm certain our audiences will say the same. Betty and Alexander, we see you out of New York. Eunice Alexander, we also see you there. Mrs. Madonna Harford, thank you so much for making the contribution. She made it clear that Sir Eric may not have had certified education at the secondary level, but he was an educated man, and we had some passionate discourse going there on social media about education and what it really does to society. May I thank you sincerely, all of you, for joining us again for another edition of Beyond the Headlines. Next week, let's look forward to a discussion on the vaccines. We will have officials of the Ministry of Health with us. Hopefully, tentatively, that is what we're looking at. Except anything else bigger breaks during the week, we take a look at where Grenada is. We know that the vaccines arrived last week. We saw the Prime Minister on national television having his shot. We will examine that issue. What alters the DNA? What are some of the conspiracy theories? What is the health perspective on those things? That's something to look forward to next week. Until then, I'm Odette Campbell on behalf of the entire GBN team saying, so long. We'll be back next week, Monday.